Welcome to the Deep Dive Podcast. Becoming the dad God has called you to be takes a deeper dive. Dads too often stay at surface level. So let's dive deep into today's podcast.
Welcome back to episode 3 of the Dad Deep Dive Podcast. We have an incredible episode today for you. Men, if you're anything like me, you love sports. And if you've been associated with Suit Up Ministries for any amount of time, then you know sports is what we talk about. But we also know that sports can become something that's a bit of a problem within our families, whether it's the amount of time that we spend, the amount of emphasis that we put on it, or more importantly, the pressures that we put on our kids. Today's guest, Brent Parker, talks about how he had to come to the conclusion of the joy for his boys playing sports for him was just to let them know that he loved to watch them play. And so today's episode is all about that as Jeff sits down with Brent Parker.
Brent Parker, man, it's great to have you here.
It's good to be here.
Man, it's been a while. You were part of one of our original in-person dad universities ever.
That's right.
And matter of fact, that your message was recorded and it's on our website, and and I've listened to it several times, and so we're going to delve into that today.
Well, I think there's like 6 people that have listened. So if you've done 5, my mom did 1.
Yeah,
that got to 6.
Yeah. So
Awesome.
we're going to double that, at least double that.
Let's give it a shot.
So the topic today that you chose is I love to watch you play, and we're going to talk about what that means in just a minute. But Brent, you're a pastor of a church in the Woodlands at Woodforest.
Right. We're in the Woodforest community. So the Woodlands United Methodist Church has 2 campuses, a Woodlands campus and a Woodforest campus. And they trust me to lead, guide, steward the folks who gather on the Woodforest campus. And so the Woodlands UMC is a massive church. We're a much smaller component, a piece of that. But we're just attempting to be a place of light in the Woodforest community, greater Woodforest community folks. We're a neighborhood church, but over time have become a bit more of a regional church. And so, we just serving that way.
I absolutely love the facility. And it's just, the porch, the front porch
That's right.
approach. And I've told people, I think you guys could get 200 people under that front porch.
I think so.
I mean,
thankfully we had it, man. COVID took us out of our building for 6 months. Our Woodlands UMC as a whole just decided we were going to shut things down a bit. And so for 6 months we were out of the building, but that porch became a real wonderful spot where folks could gather, still feel like they were coming to the building. Thankfully, we have that big sports field as well, so we've been able to do some outdoor services there. Christmas Eve, Easter, we're both outdoors, and it really felt like a safe space for folks who are still a little bit weary about coming into a building with crowds.
Well, a place to meet and still have a cover.
That's right.
We
got those big fans.
Oh my gosh, I know, and just in the beauty, especially on that back part, with that, like you said, that open field that you alluded to. This is Dad University online. I'm so grateful because I with every one of these, I anticipate who's going to be watching. The prayer is that many men will come to this site at our Dad U online. And here we have to talk about today. So again, I know your message is going to be something that's going to resonate with our listeners. You are married to your wife Corey.
That's right.
And you have 3 boys.
That's right. Corey and I have been together for 21 years now, married for 21 years, and really only together for about 21 years because I met her in November, started dating in January, bought the ring in March. Or April, asked her dad in May, and asked her in August. Just boom, boom, boom. When you find the one, you don't give them a chance to wiggle off the hook. So yes, we've been married 21 years, and 3 great sons. My favorite title in my whole world is dad. But I've got a 17-year-old who graduated in May, heading off to TCU to play baseball. Got a 15-year-old freshman and a 6-year-old kindergartner.
Wow!
So we
you get the full.
So this year
full ride.
We celebrate in the same week kindergarten graduation and high school graduation. It's a pretty special thing, for sure.
Wow!
Yeah.
So 3 boys.
Yeah.
So bless your wife.
She's a mom of boys, and she does it so well.
Do you have pets?
We have a girl dog.
Okay, I was going to say. Yeah.
So it's Mama and the girl dog, and then all the rest of us are boys wrestling and throwing each other on couches. It's a wild place to live.
That's awesome. That is so awesome. So you wrote that you love spending evenings, weekends watching your boys play, as you already said. So they play baseball, and what other sports have they been a part of?
Yeah, so of course the kindergartner, he's just been involved in, say, upward sports, and he actually got involved in a little tennis. There's a guy in Woodforest, several in Woodforest, who are doing lessons, and so we got him plugged into that. But the high school boys are pretty much year-round whatever's in season. So both played football. The freshman was a quarterback, and the older one was a receiver in a corner. They typically would both play basketball, but because of the overlap, and this year my oldest being a senior, he opted out of basketball this year. But the middle one still played, and then now they're both playing varsity ball over in baseball. They go to the Christian Academy in the Woodlands. My wife's one of the athletic directors there and coaches volleyball there, and so she takes them, and we're super fortunate to be in that setting. It's a little smaller school, and so our boys really get to thrive. They have the opportunity to play whatever they want, and it's been a tremendous benefit to my kids. Getting to be well-rounded athletes in a Christian environment. They're super blessed to be where they are.
That's so great. That's so great. You know, the sport has become such an important part of our lives. And, you know, my daughter played volleyball and my son played basketball, and neither one of them went on after high school. Yeah. But the experience they had, you know, just being part of something bigger than themselves, association with their high school teams, and then, you know, sometimes clubs and things like that, the lessons they learn.
Yeah, team sports especially, right? I mean, you learn so much in a team sport environment where you're not in it just for yourself. You're really in it for your teammates. And what I love about our school, our basketball coach, Tanner Field, he has this thing that he calls Be Third Athletics. And what he's tried to ingrain in our student athletes, not just in the basketball program, but anywhere he can get this message across, is that we want our kids to be third. Right? First is the Lord, your relationship. You're pleasing Him. Everything you do is of doing it for the Lord. Second, your teammates. Third, yourself. And that kind of thing has been ingrained. I know in my boys, they adopt it pretty quickly.
What a great...
Just to remember, I'm here to please the Lord. And what's so great is in the Scriptures we find out that God was pleased with Jesus before He did anything, and I believe He was pleased with us before we did anything. So if you're seeking first to please the Lord with everything you do, and God's already pleased, all right, check that thing off.
Yeah, that magnifies it.
But now I'm for my teammates.
Yeah.
You know, now I'm for these brothers around me.
And I think that's such an important lesson because we're in a society where it's all about me.
Oh, of course.
You know, and so I'm going to read a couple bullets that you wrote. It says, if you've been to a ballpark or sports field lately, you've likely seen and heard bleachers and bag chairs full of proud moms, dads, and grandparents cheering on their sons, daughters, and grandkids. And you go on to say, if you listen closely enough, you might begin to notice that not all of what is being shouted carries with it the types of encouragement you'd expect. With the rise of select sports has come the increased pressures on our kids to do better, be better, work harder, so that the coveted college scholarships might stay within our grasp. But while doing our best is a worthy pursuit, we have possibly allowed our enthusiasm to become a source of stress and anxiety for these kids that we love. So what do our kids need from us as we watch?
Yes.
So...
you know, a number of years ago, I ran across, in fact, I was just watching the podcast again recently. It's a TED Talk you can actually go to, and maybe I can forward the link to you and you can make it available somehow. But there's a guy, John O'Sullivan, who was a high-end soccer coach, coached D1 soccer for 4 years, but has been coaching for about 20, the most elite kids in soccer. And he tells a story about having been at the soccer fields coaching his 5-year-old child. And you know, at 5 years old, he describes it this way. It's really funny. I'm not a soccer guy. Never been a big fan of soccer, right? But it happens this way in little league basketball as well, where basically this huddle of people kind of move back and forth across the field. The ball's in between them. There's no real activity happening, no real motion. And honestly, sometimes the kid shoots in the wrong goal, a soccer goal or basketball goal. And he's describing an instance where he's watching his kid, and I think they kicked it in the wrong goal, and everybody cheers anyway because it went in a goal, and that's the whole thing, right? But he said on this particular day there was a 10-year-old game happening at the next field over, and he couldn't help but have his attention caught by the noises that were being screamed on this 10-year-old field. And somehow the difference between a 5-year-old game and a 10-year-old game was paramount. He said he turned and he saw this 10-year-old kid miss a goal or make a bad pass or something. He couldn't remember exactly what happened. And the coach yells, grabs the kid, sends him off the field, says, starts barking at him for the mistake that he's just made. This is a 10-year-old. Across the field is this kid's parent who's yelling and demoralizing their own child for the mistake they've just made. Other parents are kind of ganging in on it too. And he said, I just realized something has gone horribly wrong in youth sports. And as a guy who grew up in youth sports, my dad was a middle school coach. I was a coach before I was a pastor. I spent a lot of time on fields, watching my own kids and other kids. And I've started to see this on the rise, that these kids, as little as 8, 9, 10 years old, I mean, the select sport things become the thing. Yeah. Got to play year-round. You got to pay thousands of dollars. Little League's not good enough anymore, which is a real heresy in youth sports. But it's I was rewatching this TED Talk because I was so motivated and inspired by this guy. John says that he learned this idea from Bruce Bowen, who was a mentor of his. But somewhere along the way, he learned that kids, all they really need to hear from their parents are 5 words. And this is what I'm kind of getting at in this note is, I love watching you play. And it was super convicting the first time I heard that message because I realized that's not what my kids were hearing either. And I'm a pastor, right? So I'm paid to be good in public especially. And I don't get to let my hair down. I don't have any anymore anyway. But I'm supposed to be on my best behavior at all times. And I started to pay attention to my behavior. And I was pretty good, pretty well behaved, except when I was watching my kids play sports. I started to notice in me even that at games I could get a little out of hand. I get all caught up in the activity and my kid makes a mistake and I feel the pressure because these other parents are watching. Like, all right, what's this dad going to do when his kid doesn't throw a strike? What's this kid going to do when he doesn't make the free throw? What's this dad going to do? We're trying to win. Yeah. Right? And I found myself getting caught up in yelling at my kid like, hey, come on, just throw strikes. Yeah. Right? Or, hey, come on, it's a free throw. It's free for a reason. Right? Or, come on, watch your passes. Yeah. And my kids would turn and look at me in disgust. Like, come on, Dad. I'm trying to enjoy my game. And so much of this platform, this soapbox, as it were, that I'm now preaching and teaching to other dads and moms with young kids, it's not because I was smart. It's because I was bad at this. And someone finally called me out on it. The TED Talk, the podcast, and then ultimately my own children. When my freshman, he was quick on this. So, like, for instance, he's playing basketball, and I'll yell out, come on, man, hustle. And he'll turn to me like and give me this dirty look like, Dad, just shut up. I'm trying to enjoy myself here. And I only needed to get that look a few times before it finally settled in. And then my wife turned to me and said, Brent, I don't even want to sit next to you at these games. And so thankfully I heard this podcast, and I have slowly begun to change to where instead of after a game saying, like I used to, hey, son, tell me something you did really, like I thought I was a good dad, being well-meaning, well-intentioned, get into the car. I'd quit yelling at games, but I still felt like I should coach. So we get in the car and I say, hey, son, tell me something you did well. Yeah. Tell me something that you didn't do so well that we could do better, I could help you with. When all along, all my kid really wanted to hear from me was, I love watching you play. That's it. Coaches are there to coach. Yeah. I'm the dad. All they wanted me to say was, son, I love watching you play. And that flipped for me. And that's all they get. That's all they get from me anymore. I love watching you play. If you want me to give input, especially basketball, because that's what I know about. I don't know much about baseball and football. But if you want some input, I'll give it to you. But really, all I want you to hear me say is I love watching you play.
Yeah.
That's
Wow.
it.
Wow.
It's it. And it's completely shifted the way I watch games now. Again, basketball is a challenge for me, man. I've not quite licked it in basketball because that's what I used to coach. But I've realized I cheer like I'm a coach. Mm-hmm. And going into this past season, I asked my middle son, what do you need from me in basketball this year? He said, Dad, I need you to cheer like a dad instead of a coach. And so I took the challenge. And for the most part, I did better. It's always a work in progress. But
well, we're all a work in progress. We all fall short. I remember calling my daughter, who was grown, when I called her, and I was on my way to do a talk to a father-son event about what it means to be a good dad.
Yeah.
And for something on my way there, I thought, I'm going to call my daughter and ask her the tough question. And that was kind of a wrong. I probably should have thought about asking that question earlier because I was on my way. Hear what it's kind of like hear what I say, don't do what I do. Something. And I said, what? I said, Carly, was I a good dad?
Yeah.
And she gave it to me, and she told me yes. I mean, I got the answer I needed to hear.
Yeah.
But I think that sometimes we think that there, in some instances, that we're better than we really are. And the people, if we ask the questions that love us the most, are really going to tell us the truth if we ask. Sometimes they won't volunteer it, but that reflection. But I think I love that. I love to watch you play.
Yeah.
I think that's I believe that dads should be our kids. We should be our kids' first coach.
Yeah.
But what kind of coach?
Yeah.
Coach in the sense of what?
Yeah.
Coaching them up. Yeah.
Yeah. Because here's the deal that I've learned, and it's taken me a while to figure this out, but my kid, when both my boys are pitchers, when they're on the mound, do you think they're trying to throw a ball? Do you think they're trying to walk the kid?
Yeah.
No, they're trying to throw a strike. The last thing they need from me is to be listening to Dad yell from the bleachers, just throw strikes. What do you think I'm trying to do here, Dad?
Good idea.
Hey, great. I hadn't thought about that one before. But we get so hung up in the game. There's a dad who's a dad of one of our teammates. And I so badly want to turn to him and say, bro, it's too late to try to coach him on the intricacies of the position that he's playing. And oh, by the way, our head coach played D1 ball. His assistant coach is Aaron Hill, who played 15 years in the majors and was an all-star. I think they got all the coaching they need at practices and in the dugout. They probably don't need you. Dad, why don't you just let him know that you love watching him play? Because, Dad, you're going to realize we've got just a handful of games left in this season. My oldest son's a senior. I'm literally watching the very last few games that I'll ever get to watch my high school senior on this field. Yeah. Now, thankfully, he's fortunate he'll be playing after high school, and I'll get to watch more. But in reality, I got this game to watch. We're not promised tomorrow, right? I mean, not to go too deep into these things, but we're promised today. Be grateful for today and love the opportunity you have to watch your kid play today, because tomorrow you may not be there and they may not be there.
Yeah.
They're one pitch away from it all being over. Yeah. They're one at bat away from it all being over. So just
I think that's great.
Enjoy it.
Yeah, I think that right there is really almost a whole nother conversation.
It really is
about how we take for granted. When I think back about watching my son and daughter play, it was almost as fun watching them play was the anticipation of watching them play, or getting in the car and driving to some of these little towns or venues, and going out to dinner somewhere in the local town, and just the whole package of it. And then one day, it doesn't happen. It's over. And even with your son playing in college one day, even if he goes on to pro, one day, so as a dad, as being the coach, we prepare them maybe for even our kids for that one day.
Yeah. I mean, my oldest son, he's super fortunate. And even a year and a half ago, we would have never thought we'd be in this position with him. But much less when he was 8 years old, really getting into team sports 10 years ago. You never would have known. But now my son, he's going to have a decision to make. July 11th is the MLB draft, and he's in the top 100 and projected second-round pick. But he's also got this great scholarship opportunity at TCU. And so my kid, who's currently 17, he'll turn 18 in June, he's having to make some pretty difficult decisions about his future and the game that he loves. And I just keep trying to remind him, son, look, all these people that are begging for your attention, all these scouts in the stands, these coaches when you were back in the recruiting process, it may have felt like they were there because they love you, but they were there because they're going to make money off you. They're in the stands because they want you to make money for them and their organization or their college. And these are good people. I'm not trying to diminish these people in their personhood, but Caedmon, let's not get things twisted. You are a child of God first, created in His image with plans that He has for you. And maybe the plans include baseball. But even if you go as far as the best go in baseball, by the time you're 35 to 40 years old, you're just going to be like me again, just another dude. So let's not get things out of order here. You're a child of God who's really good at baseball. You're not a baseball player who's trying to follow the Lord, So let's just keep our priorities straight. And I've been so proud of him. He's so level-headed with this. He'll get on the mound, and there's all these scouts and radar guns, and he just plays. Very first game of the season, I'll tell you, I don't know how much time we have, but the very first game of the season, I show up. My wife has texted me and said, Brent, there's all these scouts here. I had no idea what was happening. I show up. I got butterflies all in me. I got the sunflower seeds and the Gatorades that I bring to the games when the boys text me that they've forgotten them. So I show up, and there's a door to the dugout, and I open the door. Hey, I'm handing in the sunflower seeds and the Gatorades, and my senior's right there. He wears number 5. And he's been stretching, and these scouts have been walking all over watching him stretch and throw and pat down the dirt in the bullpen. And they're like, it's a circus, man. And I opened that door, and I give him this stuff, and I said, hey, bud, you ready? And he turned to me with a look I'd never seen in his face before. Try not to get emotional. He turned to me and said, Dad, can you come pray for me? He's never asked me to pray for him before a game, ever. So I went in there, I had my hat on, and he had his, and he's 6'4", and I'm not. I'm 5'10". So he leans down on me, puts his arm around me, and we're just quiet. Like, I could not get words out. I was so overcome. So he pulls my hat off of me. I forgot to take my hat off to pray even. Pull my hat off. He says, Dad, you can do it. He's coaching me up to coach him up. And all he wants from me is a prayer. And I just began to think, man, if that's all he really wants, a prayer from Dad, and I love watching you play from Dad, he knows all the pressure around him. He knows what he's supposed to do on the field. There ain't nothing I can offer him. But I find myself trying to tell these parents of their year-round sport athletes, that's all they need.
See, now that's the kind of coach your kid needs, right? There. That's coaching. That's the coaching there. So how can parents and coaches work together so that the kids continue to excel?
Yeah. So interesting thing happened in the fall. So again, we're going through this with my oldest son. I don't know what's coming behind with my other boys, but my oldest son, he had some great opportunities to do some All-American things, and he was kind of lining up to pitch, and he knows pitching is his future, but he's a multi-sport athlete. So football season's coming in August, and he decides, I'm not going to play football. I'm just going to quit. I'm going to give all my energy to baseball, year-round baseball, right? And I get a call the next week from Schlossnagle, the head coach at TCU. And he said, hey, man, what's Caedmon doing this fall? We're so excited about him next year, and da-da-da-da-da. And I said, well, Coach, you'll be glad to know that he quit football. He's not going to play basketball just so he can be ready for you for baseball. He's all in baseball, baseball, baseball. And there was this pause. I still remember I was in my driveway. There was a little pause. And then Schlossnagle says, hey, could you get him to play football? Could you talk him into playing after all? Is it too late? Like, what do you mean? You want to take a chance on him getting hurt in football? He goes, there's a greater chance he's going to get hurt in baseball. He said, Brent, here's the deal. He said, professional baseball players take 3 to 4 months off a year to recover, to rehab. Why do 8 to 18-year-old kids think they need to play year-round? Why do they feel like they need to be playing baseball tournaments all year, or basketball tournaments all year, or soccer tournaments all year? Where do they get this idea that we have to do this? He says, and I hope he'd be okay with me quoting him, but he said, I wish they'd just get rid of fall baseball. Because kids are being harmed. They're being damaged. Moms and dads are investing time and money in things that are not actually going to be good for their kids. So I've been telling, so my son, I went back in the building, into my house, I said, Cademan, come down. What's up? Slosh just called me. Oh, cool. What do you want? He wants you to go play football again. What? Really? Yes. He wants you to play football. So Cademan was so excited because he wanted to play football. Called the coach. Coach said, come on back. You tell the team why you quit and why you want to be back. Ended up getting to be a captain of the team. He made All-State, both sides of the ball. He was so excited. He was like a little boy again, getting to do the stuff he loves. And I think that's kind of what these guys, Bruce and John and others, are realizing is these kids, all the D1 coaches we've talked to for baseball, they value the multi-sport athlete. And so I'm kind of I've got this sort of mission on me to say, if you've already specialized in a sport and your kid's 8, 10, 12, 14, what are you doing?
Yeah. Let them play.
What are you doing? Let them play all the sports they want.
Yeah.
There's no need for year-round. Let their body rest in the different body muscle groups. Let their mind move to something else. Get them into a fine art. Get them singing or dancing or you get more of their body involved, because, and this is something that podcast says, that I don't know how, I can't remember how many millions of kids are in youth sports, but the stat is that 7 out of 10 quit their youth sport by the time they're 14 years old. 7 out of 10. Yet all of these kids got into it at 8 years old. They quit the local Little League. They go play select ball, which is really just a dad who's a little over-eager saying, I want to pick my own team, and I'm going to grab the best kids. I'm going to ruin, they don't realize, I'm going to ruin the local Little Leagues by making all these select things. It's a team full of kids that aren't really select level, but they're all buddies at least, and we're going to get them all scholarships.
Yeah.
What they don't realize is 7 out of 10 of those kids aren't even going to play that sport by the time they're 14. You see the rise in Tommy John surgeries. You see the rise in all these.
Yeah.
And I just want to say, moms, dads, put the money in a college account.
Exactly.
You're wasting the money, and your kid, you're burning them out. And on my drive here, man, I had this thought. So they say, my wife's calling. So they say that in the church, I'm a pastor. In the church, they say if a kid doesn't make a decision to follow Jesus by the time they're 14 years old, stats bear that the chances of them ever saying yes to Jesus decline dramatically. And on my way here, I just had that thought. Okay, so if 7 out of 10 kids who were playing youth sports quit by the age of 14, but if we don't introduce these kids to Jesus by the time they're age 14, they're going to probably never choose Jesus or know that Jesus has chosen them. It really hit me. What are we doing for kids that are 8 to 14 years old? Where is our investment of time and energy? And if I'm a mom or a dad and I want what's best for my kid, well, the stats say that what's best for my kid is that I don't overdo it in sports, because they'll quit. 70% of them are going to quit by 14. Maybe I should be investing my time and energy in making sure they got a relationship with Jesus.
Yeah.
Because if I don't do that by the time the kid's 14, they may never choose Jesus. It was a real interesting connection that the Spirit laid on my heart today, and something I'm going to sit with a little bit longer.
Yeah.
Maybe I need to flesh it out more before we do it on a podcast, but I'm just thinking. By the time the kid's 14, what do we want for them?
Yeah. I think about these kids that, as you mentioned, start so young, and they burn out or peak out. I mean, they have the highlight of their athletic career is maybe in the 7th or 8th grade, and then they don't. At that point, there's really nowhere to go for them, because they've achieved all these things that they've heard all these things, and then they run into a wall, because maybe when they get into high school, everybody's caught up with them, or they just lose interest. They're so tired. They've played so many games. As a former high school coach, sometimes, and I was a soccer coach too. I was football, soccer, weird dynamic, dichotomy, but I do love soccer. But I saw it more in sports that had club, because I would be I would be standing in front of my team talking about how important this game was. And this may be game 18 for us, but it's game like 111 for them. And they're saying, okay, we've done this several many times, and that's just in the last calendar year, and it's just another game. Which I think is good balance. I mean, I think there is a balance between it being a game and being the most important thing that they've. How many times can we say that? But I think we do a disservice to some of these kids because we don't let them play all the games. We don't let them try everything when they're young, and they become specialized, and then they just burn. And then they've not participated all those years in other things, and it's almost really too late to step in. I mean, very rarely does somebody come out for football as a junior, or a sophomore, or even start football if they haven't played in in middle school, or Pee Wee League.
That's right.
Or flag football. So, so how much? And you've kind of alluded to this. How much is too much? When it comes to extracurricular activities for our kids.
Yeah, again, it kind of. I almost want to couch it in that this recognition the Spirit's given me about this. When a kid turns 14, what do we want for them? Ultimately, it comes down to priorities. Like, what are we trying to make sure that we pass on to the next generation, our own children? What's going to make us most proud? To be able to walk into their bedroom when they're getting ready to graduate high school and say, look at all those trophies. Look, dusting is one of my least favorite things as a chore. And that's all those trophies end up becoming, is something to dust. Because at the end of the day, those kids don't care. They don't remember. They don't remember the tournament it came from. So for me, it's let's prioritize, what do we want our kids to get while they're here at home? And every family's going to have to decide for themselves how much is too much in terms of how many tournaments a weekend. Pastor, we're only gone 1 weekend a month for this baseball thing. Maybe 1 weekend a month is fine. But if I'm playing basketball, baseball, and I'm on the dance team, and I got 5 practices a week, at some point, when's the kid being a kid? And so I think every family's going to have to figure it all out. And maybe as a pastor, it's not my job to say to our folks in the church how much they should be involved in sports. But what's motivating the activity that your kid is in? I think it's a really great question. Why is that kid in this? Are you trying to introduce your kids to as many things as possible so they can uncover who it is God created them to be and how they're going to uniquely express the image of God to the world? Hey, that's not a bad thing. I think we want every parent to give their kids that chance. But if we're pursuing all of these things to keep up because our next door neighbor's doing it, if we don't do it now, we're hearing they're not going to get that scholarship, just tap the brakes a little bit. Because again, the overuse is what's led to that 7 out of 10 dropping it all before they even get to high school. I just think it ultimately helps to ask the question, why? Why are we doing this? It's been said to me that if you have to tell your kid to go practice, there's a decent chance they're practicing your sport and not theirs, or your extracurricular and not theirs. If a kid's saying, "Hey, Mom, can you take me to the park? I want you to pitch to me." Hey, Dad, can you take me to the park? I want to work on this thing on my skateboard. Hey, then it's probably their interest. It's probably the thing they really want to do. But if you're having to say, "Hey, we need to get out there and throw some more pitches. You got to work on that breaking ball." They're probably getting enough from their coach already. And don't hear me right. I'm not a big fan of participation trophies at all. I don't think every kid gets a trophy just for showing up. I do think winning's important. I mean, our culture is built around winning and losing, and there's a place for it. Trust me, I get that. But I think the emphasis on the skills, the emphasis on did I do well or not, how do we win, that's the coach. The kid doesn't need dad, doesn't need mom picking apart how good or how bad they did. What they need to hear from mom and dad is, "Oh, it was so fun watching you play today. Oh, I loved the way you did such and such. It was so good." I was with a dad at lunch yesterday who said every now and then he gets hung up in or caught up in the game. He'll see a kid on the opposing team do something really, really good, and he'll go, "Oh, man, what a catch." And he looks around, and the other coaches and the parents are like, "Why are you cheering for the other team?" Because it's innately in us. When someone does something great, we want to cheer for it. And these kids are 9 years old and 10 years old. This dad that I was talking to, this kid, I'm like, every 9-year-old and 10-year-old needs to be cheered if they snow cone a ball in the infield. They all need to be cheered if they hit a home run, even if it beat us. I mean, the kids need it.
What great modeling that is as well for our own kids when we celebrate success of all people when we see something that deserves that type of recognition.
Yeah.
Brent, I think your title, I loved to watch you play, is age appropriate no matter what.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, from 8 till 18 or to 36 or to as long as they play.
That's right.
I think that those 5 words, I so appreciate you sharing it with me and our audience, our future audiences here at Dad U online. What else, for parting words, would you say to our dads that are listening today in regards to their kids' involvement in extracurricular?
Yeah, so I think probably what I'd say is almost umbrella. If I can sneak this in, it's not only for the extracurricular, but it definitely is a part of that. Oftentimes I'll have a dad who I'm sitting down at lunch with, and they'll talk about how stressful they are and how they're always traveling. This was pre-COVID, much more than now. When during COVID, many people were working from home, but it still is the case. How many dads I sit with over lunch who say, "Man, I'm so busy. I'm so busy. I'm working so hard. I'm traveling. I'm on this and I'm on that. And man, I'm having to miss practices, and I don't know how my wife's getting our kids to all their stuff." And I'll stop them and I'll say, "Hey, how old's your oldest kid again?" And they'll look at me with a sort of a puzzled look on their face, and 12. Man, you got 6 left. What do you mean? You got 6 years left. Well, I'm not following. Well, yeah, so if your oldest kid's 12, they'll move out of the house at 18. You got 6 more years with that kid before they leave home. One of the most important ministries you've been given after loving the Lord with all your heart, mind, soul, and strength, and your neighbor as yourself, is to love your wife. And after you love your wife, you're supposed to love your kids. And kids, we know, spell love, T-I-M-E. You got 6 years left, brother. Have you asked your kids lately if a smaller house would matter to them? If they care what car you drive? Yeah. What are you chasing?
Yeah.
What are you chasing, brother?
Yeah.
Your kid's going to miss you.
Yeah.
They're missing you now
at
practices. They're missing you at the games. How many of these things are you going to miss? You got 6 years left. And they look at me like, "Oh, I hadn't really thought about it." I said, "Bro, my 17-year-old was my 6-year-old. Boom, that long ago.
Yeah.
And he's leaving home. I'm watching the last couple games. I go to as many practices as I can. Thankfully, I've got a flexible schedule. During football season, they turn that air conditioning on in the press box for me. There's Wi-Fi. I take my laptop. I'm working on sermons while I watch my kids practice. Now, some might say, you're like a helicopter parent, or you're an overeager dad. You're too caught up in the game. I'm not coaching them. I'm not trying to pick apart the route they just ran or the way my son throws the ball. I just love watching my kids do what they do. And if I can work while I'm watching, man, it's bonus.
Yeah.
And so I just would tell dads, especially, I don't know if moms sneak on here to say, "Hey, dad, husband, you ought to watch this." So I kind of been talking about moms and dads, but
absolutely.
But if there's a question that I would want a dad to ask himself after watching this is, how old is my oldest kid? Do the quick math, 18 minus that. That's what I got left. And in the grand scheme of things, knowing that we've only got today, we're not promised tomorrow. If you could get yourself into thinking about how many tomorrows, if they all came to you, how many tomorrows do you have before you no longer get to wake up and see your kid getting up and ready for school, and get to go to practices, and get to go to games, and get to kiss them goodnight at the end of the night, or tell them you love them, or sit outside their room and pray over them. You don't have much time left.
Yeah.
Take full advantage of it. Your kids don't need to be busy doing all these extracurricular things.
Yeah.
They need you. They need you.
Yeah.
And what they need to hear you say is, "I love watching you. I just love watching you play.
Yeah.
It's a pleasure to watch you."
And sometimes, Brent, I'm sure your boys are this way too. They have a funny way of telling you that.
Yeah.
But they will remember.
Yeah. On senior night, my son gave me a baseball. "Thank you so much, Dad, for all the love and support you've been showing me."
Yeah.
He didn't say, "Thanks for showing me how to throw that slider."
Yeah.
"Thanks for calling me out when I couldn't throw a strike."
Yeah.
"Thanks for showing me how to run a route or high point a ball to make an interception." He didn't tell me any of those things. He said, "Thanks for your love and support."
Yeah.
That was all I needed.
Yeah, and you're going to remember, and he's going to remember always.
Yeah.
That prayer that you guys had together.
Yep.
When he put his arm around you, as you described, that's what matters most.
Yeah. And if he doesn't remember it, I'll never forget it.
Exactly. It's eternal.
He gave me a gift that day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Brent, thank you for being the daily, active, devoted dad that you are. Thanks for being the dad, and thanks for being part of Dad University.
Yeah, I appreciate it, man. I love what you're doing. I love your ministry, and I'm grateful to be just a little part of it here in this little talk. And thanks for the drink.
Absolutely.
I appreciate it.
Love you, man.
Yeah, I love you, bro.
We're so thankful to Brent for just being honest enough to tell us his own struggles and the journey that he had to go on to truly get to a point where it wasn't about coaching his sons and pushing them and always giving them that next step to take, but to instead just assure them that he loved to watch them play. Man, that was powerful for me. That was powerful, I hope, for you. And I just want to say thank you for taking the time to watch this deep dive podcast. I hope you were encouraged. I hope your next step, the next time you sit to watch your kids play, you will be able to say, man, I just love to watch you play, and enjoy that moment in time that we've been given as a gift. It's a short gift, but it's so impactful in the lives of our kids. Thank you for joining us today in regards to being a part of Dad U Online. Thank you for taking that step of faith to be the man that God has called you to be. And until next week, have a good one.